Hi, this is Tasheena.
And this is Jonathan.
And this is We Watch What We Watch, a podcast where a married couple come together to talk about TV and movies. Today, we have Shōgun, episode 3 and 4.
So if you missed our previous episode, go watch that, get us engagement, comment on how much you hated it and all the things we got wrong, and how offensive we are to Japanese culture, as much as possible. And then you can come back and watch this one.
But I do truly want to apologize the Japanese language for all the ways I butchered it last episode.
So, start with a recap.
Sure.
All right, so we're first going to be covering episode 3, Tomorrow is Tomorrow. After Blackthorn survives a brazen assassination attempt, Toranaga realizes he must ferry his allies out of Osaka or risk certain defeat. So this episode, we really start getting into the meat of the plot and really starts to kick off.
Yeah, it's more of an action episode.
Yeah, this one especially.
Escape from Osaka.
Yeah.
Yeah. High tension. Are they going to make it? Everybody going to get out of this alive? We start off this episode with our problematic fave, Yabu.
Yabushige.
Yeah. Where he is writing a will.
Yes. And they've done this many times before.
Feel like for a samurai or a leader, they're probably doing this a lot.
Yabu especially. He always is planning for the future.
But only one step ahead.
Only one step ahead.
He's writing the will because Toranaga has called him for a little one-on-one meeting. I guess he's afraid it's not going to go well.
No.
Which it almost doesn't. I feel like I was on the edge there for a sec.
Yeah, so he brings him in, and basically he does a little Toranaga game. He talks about the assassination attempt that happens, and he doesn't say that it was against the engine at first.
Correct.
He basically just straight up asks him, like, what would someone pay for my head? And Hiromatsu's behind him, sort of draws his sword a little bit. Yabu's was like, fine, decided to take my life. I was like, Yabu, aren't you my close and trusted friend? Like, huh? Oh.
That's Yabu's favorite line. Huh?
Oh. Which I think in the behind the scenes podcast, it sounded like he ad-libbed a lot of those little reactions and which is great.
I can see that.
But yeah, so basically Toranaga says he'll keep his head. He basically confronts him about his meeting with Ishido, so he knew about that when Ishido came to him in the previous episode about getting the engine.
And he asked him, like, what did he offer you? And he's like, a seat on the council.
Your seat on the council.
Your seat on the council. And Yabu's like, but I actually just want more land.
Do you think he's being honest? Because he says no. He says, no, I wasn't interested.
Who knows with Yabu?
Right.
Honestly, he would probably take either or.
Is it something he'd want because he's ambitious, or is it something he wouldn't want because he sees
how things go for regions?
I don't
he's
want
like,
that.
I mean, he might be honest and like, you know what? I just want to build up my area. I don't want to be a regent. Because, yeah, it doesn't look like a good job. Seems a bit stressful. He's like, I'll just go over to my own domain, be the guy with the feather vest, looking dapper. You know, that's what I'm good for.
Yeah. Yeah, he just says he wants some more land. And so Toranaga gives him a deal. It's like, I need to get the engine. He reveals that, the assassination attempt was against the engine, not him.
Yes.
He needs to get him and Lady Kiri, who's the Taiko's...
The first wife.
Yeah, the first wife of the Taiko, I believe.
So she's about the same age as him. His second wife is a lot younger and is like 8 months pregnant. Like she looks like she's about to be due.
And he says, so I need to get the engine and Lady Kiri out of the city. If you escort them to Ajiro, the fishing village that we started at, this extra land is yours for your fief. So basically just loops him in, on part of the plan. But in true Toranaga fashion, he is basically just, he does not trust Yabu one bit. He trusts him to do some very specific things. And we will see that he excluded a key part of this plan.
From a lot of people.
But I think most significantly from Yabu, because it comes into play.
Yep. It does not look good for Yabu.
No.
In the end. Pretty much the next few scenes are everybody being told, like, we're leaving. We're leaving Osaka. Get your shit together. Let's go. So first of those is a doctor is looking at John's wound from the end of the last episode. The doctor mentions like how tense John is. And then this is where we start getting the pillow talk. The Japanese see sex as something you should do once in a while to relieve tension. It's definitely not as puritanical.
Yeah, they don't seem to have the same hang-ups.
Yeah. But they call it pillow talk.
Pillowing, yeah.
Pillowing.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And also, I think this is a good time to bring up one thing. We're going to be talking a lot about Japanese culture and, the culture. And I think we mean something pretty specific when we talk about that within the context of this show, which is that we are not Japanese cultural experts.
Yes.
Right? There's this general international knowledge you have, right? And then there's what we're being presented in this show.
Yes.
We are trusting, in a lot of ways, that the culture we are being presented with in the show is more or less accurate to the time period. So I think whenever we say something, well, in this culture, such and such is important or such and such isn't, really what we're saying is within this show, the Shōgun Japanese culture as presented to us in the show is what we're referencing.
I think that is a good distinction.
Yeah.
This is our own interpretation of what we are being presented in the show.
If you think that's inaccurate, we can talk about what the show is presenting if that's accurate. But I think one big thing to keep in mind is this is from a previous time period, not necessarily what is true nowadays. Just wanted to bring that up, that it's like the culture within the show, we're assuming it's accurate, but
I just thought it was interesting, Mariko kind of just casually talking about it.
Yeah.
It doesn't, like you said, there doesn't seem to be hang-ups, especially with her being Catholic. You would think there would be, but I'm like, oh, I guess culturally it seems like there's definitely more of an openness.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely true of lots of people who the culture you grew up with is always going to have more of an impression on you than, say, the religion you adopt later in life.
Yes.
So, yeah, she definitely is still very much has her Japanese beliefs as opposed to their Catholic ones.
Another scene we get, is Hiramatsu talking to Fuji, who has just received the ashes of her husband and her baby.
Yeah, seeing those little boxes was heartbreaking. You have a bigger one than a little one for the baby.
And this scene is more them talking about belonging to a greater fight, because Fuji's father died they had a wars in Korea, and that's where her father passed away. And she has his swords. So she's looking at the swords while they're having this conversation. And Hiro talking about her father. And pretty much how we get into this perspective a lot throughout the show of just because they died doesn't mean it was meaningless. Like her husband and her son are part of a greater fight for Lord Toranaga and what he represents.
Yep. Yeah, that theme's going to come into play later too.
Before we escape from Osaka, I forgot the priests have a little chit-chat with the captain of the Black Ship.
Yeah, so they talk about how Toranaga has denied the Black Ship exit from Osaka, and the captain doesn't give a fuck. It's like, I work for the crown, not the church. We're leaving tonight anyway.
The Black Ship sails tonight, and all I could
sails tonight.
All I could think of, evil ends tonight. That comes into play later in this episode, so I just wanted to mention that the captain of the Black Ship is like,
yeah,
bye.
So you get a little perspective into like their power dynamics here. You do have the church, and they're quite powerful, but they're separate but intertwined with the crown itself, who the Black Ship more directly answers to. They have their own agendas. They need to leave port, otherwise, their profits will be affected. And so the captain doesn't care that the priests are trying to point out that, this is diplomatic suicide because we will not be invited back if we leave now. And he's just like, nah, that's next year's problem. As the episode says, tomorrow is tomorrow. I'm leaving tonight.
I'm leaving tonight, yep. Now we got everybody gathering together in the courtyard to get ready to leave.
Yeah, again, the only one who's not leaving would be specifically Toranaga and Hiramatsu, because obviously they are hostages.
Yes, and his second wife, who is pregnant. I'm guessing because she is pregnant and going to have his child.
Who's Toranaga's first wife?
The older lady.
That's to the Taiko's wife. She's Kira no Kata, like a Chiba no Kata.
Wow. I thought that was both his wives.
No, I think Kira was the Taiko's, because, right? Otherwise, wouldn't it be? Oh, it's gonna look really stupid if I'm wrong.
Oh man.
Wait, no,
he's gonna Google it.
I must know now.
Well, anywho, whoever this lady is, her and Fuji are in different compartments that they sit in that are like closed up, and men carry them out of the city. And see who's right? It's probably Jonathan.
Nope. Toranaga.
What? So that's his first wife, correct? Like his official wife.
Yeah.
And Shizu?
I really thought it was the Taiko.
Shizu is his second wife, the one who's like 8 months pregnant.
Yes.
So it's just his first wife who's going, and Hiramatsu, second wife, Toranaga are staying behind. But yeah, everybody else is hauling ass to get out of Osaka. They're almost about to leave, and then Jonathan, who crashes the party?
Shido comes in, like, we had an arrangement. I was supposed to be informed when high peoples were leaving that I could pay respects, i.e. inspect them and make sure no one's leaving who's not supposed to be. Mm-hmm. So they have Kiri and Fuji in...
I explained about the compartments that they're in.
Yeah, the litters.
Yeah.
Oh, you did? Damn, I was...
Yeah, you were in...
busy.
Google land.
So he sees that Fuji's in one, goes to the other, sees that Kiri's in there, saying, okay, fine. Everything seems to be in order. And at that point, Toranaga's second wife, she starts,
oh no,
the child.
Again, I'm in pain. On the stairs.
It's a nice little distraction. Everybody's looking over there. And then John Blackton looks and he notices he's Kiri rounding a corner and sees that there's someone else in Kiri's litter who is dressed in similar clothes but has a strange mustache and beard. So Toranaga has swapped places and he gives a little grin as he realizes what's happening. And then Mariko was not aware of this either. I think there were only 3 people who knew.
The wives and Hiramatsu.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the only ones who knew about this changeroo that's
Which goes
happening.
to show like Toranaga, like who he actually trusts.
Yeah.
And 2 of those people are his wives. And then that's about it.
Which I think is interesting because it seems like in this culture, women don't have power. But I think they do. I think they hold more power than we think.
It's a different kind.
Yes, it's a very indirect way. But yeah, like you said, Toranaga, he trusts his wives, which I was surprised. I feel like, I don't know, usually big time lords like that are kind of more dismissive towards their wives.
Yeah, women in, again, this culture, shows culture, which is representative of Shogun era Japan, blah, blah, blah. Not Shogun, Sengoku era Japan. They have a very important role in society.
Yes. Because as Mariko tells John, if they find out they're trying to sneak him on out of the city, they're all dead. Not only Toranaga, anybody involved is dead. Him telling them this secret and trusting them with this plan, I think says a lot about how he values these 3 people. Because, like you said, John and Mariko only know because...
they happen to spot the swap.
Yeah. And so she explains that to John. She also tells him a little bit of Toranaga's background with him at 6 years old being
he was a hostage.
Yeah.
For a while, and so that taught him some lessons about enemies are everywhere and friends nowhere.
Yeah.
You only have yourself.
And so you always keep that secret heart to yourself. You reveal it to nobody. I like how she said, my lord is known for his trickery. And then we get a great comedic moment where they get stopped again as they're...
at the gate, yep.
And the guard is coming through, and he's looking at the compartments with Fuji and who is supposed to be Kiri. He looks at Fuji, and John knows if he catches Toranaga, they're all dead. He's like, and he looks around like, nobody's going to stop him?
And of course nobody's going to stop him because no one knows.
And Mariko always looks frozen. She's just like, I don't know what to do. But because he's a foreigner and he's kind of a buffoon a bit, he gets away with, how dare you go into a lady's compartment? Is there no such thing as purity and virtue here? And like, he's just screaming and yelling this.
Yeah, basically he just goes all in on his buffoon barbarian foreigner act. Just really plays into it, just really loud, making a huge scene.
And Marco's there. Oh, I'm so sorry. He has different customs. The way women are treated in his land is different. And so because this goes on for so long, I guess one of like the heads.
Yeah, Jozen. Jozen is Ishido's like general, his Hiramatsu.
Because some of Yoshiro's people are like going with them to the harbor. And he's just like, oh my gosh, let's just be gone. Like, stop this nonsense. Let's go. But because only a couple people know who's actually in the compartment, it also seems like to some of the other people, like, this is who we're risking our lives for.
Buntaro says, like, this is the man. So you can see very early, like, Buntaro does not like...
Oh, not at all.
John at all. This further confirms his suspicions that this guy is a buffoon, even though in actuality he just saved Toranaga's life.
Everyone's life. They would all be dead if it wasn't for him. So that is definitely using your disadvantage for your advantage. Yes.
Yep. So they're on their way to the harbor, and so to get to the harbor, they have to
go through like a woods, right?
Yeah, so because the castle and the harbor, are in different places, so you have to go a little bit outside of both, which is where all these ambushes usually happen. That's where John was rescued previously.
There's just so many bandits, Jonathan.
On their way there, they get ambushed by one of the Christian lords. I forget his name.
It's the one with the rich guy, right?
Yeah, the other rich one. I do think their armor looked pretty cool with like the samurai armor, but then with like the cross, the Catholic cross on the front of it.
Yes.
I thought that was some nice design elements there. But yeah, so they ambush them because they want the engine dead. And as far as they know, this is the engine, leaving the city. So they're like, fuck it, we're going to kill him. So they ambush the convoy. They realize about halfway through that Ishido's men are there too. They did not realize that Ishido's men were there. And the region basically just like, then they'll die along with the heretic. So he doesn't give a fuck.
Oh, well. And then the compartment that Toranaga is in knocks over and catches on fire, right?
Yep.
And Miracle's like, runs over like, we need to get our lore down. And that is when it's revealed to Ishido's men, wait, Toranaga's here?
We've been escorting Toranaga this whole time. We've been betrayed. So now Ishido's men are fighting Toranaga's men while being attacked by the other region.
And the Christian lord up on the hill is like, why are they turning on each other? What is happening? I also like this moment because I think people could mistake Mariko as a passive protagonist, and she's not. She's not at all. And this is one of the good moments we have where as soon as they all are turning on each other, it's not looking good for Toranaga and his men. She's like, we have to go help. She picks up a weapon and she starts going in on the warriors. And John follows her. Just because women can't be proactive all the time doesn't mean they can't be or they don't want to be. And in moments where Mariko's like, shit needs to get done, she does.
Yeah, when it is appropriate.
Exactly.
And I think it also shows like how invested everyone at every level is in the cause that they're all a part of. Which is alternating. It's not just a cause of one person. It really, everyone is bought in to their cause and will do anything, whatever is necessary to follow it.
Yeah, because Mariko, I think, goes more into that in the next episode.
Yeah.
All right, so
they escape the ambush. Jozen escapes to make sure Shido is warned.
Yes.
At this point, Buntaro is revitalized once he sees that Toranaga's there. Because like, good, someone I actually want to fight and die for. So he tells them to go on to the harbor and that he will hold them off, as long as he can. So they rush ahead. The Christian Lord sees that they're rushing ahead, so he tells them to send word to the harbor to go after them. They make it to the harbor. They get to the harbor and they find the crew of the ship that carried John and Rodriguez and Yabu to Osaka. And John's like, oh, I know these people. They like me. So he goes and says hi to them, and they all get on boats and start rowing out to their galley. Yeah, and at that point, the streets start flooding with the Christian samurai. They're all out to sea now. They're all rowing, no one's left on the dock. And then Buntaro comes out, and he makes it to the dock, but it's too late.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, in case someone forgot, this is Maruko's husband.
Yeah. John's all, we have to go back for him. We have to get him. And so there's a great moment here when Tara's looking out to Toranaga. Toranaga stands up, addresses him by his full name, and bows. And they both realize what has to be done. And again, it's devotion to the cause. He knows that it would be too risky. They cannot go back and get him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he's basically doomed him to die at this point, defending his lord.
And in a way, it seems like John always thinks they don't value life. They do. It's just very different, because if they had gone back to get him, they could have gone into the boats. They could have killed more people.
It would have been bad.
And her husband knows that too. He knows, like, him sacrificing himself is for the greater good. More people will hopefully get out alive if he does that.
And I think at some point later they will say this specifically. And he thinks it's that they don't value life. It's more that they also value death.
Yes.
And I say this specifically later. Maruko says something along the lines of, life or death both can have meaning and purpose.
And for John, he has a hard time seeing meaning in death.
Yeah, but death is basically 100% completely pointless to him. There's no reason to die. It's always a waste. I think it's hard to see death as having meaning when you are only concerned about yourself and your own journey.
Yes.
When you have no cause to contribute to. Because in some ways, yeah, when you is the only thing you're looking out for, then yes, death is meaningless because it ends you.
Yes.
If you is the only purpose you have, if doing what you want, if freedom is your only drive, then death can serve no purpose. Buntaro turns around and charges at the swarms of people coming after them and fights them off into an alleyway and out of sight. Oh, what's going to happen? Anyway, so he is quote-unquote dead. They make it to the ship, they get on board, and they start rowing out.
And then John sees there's a lot of boats out there. He goes,
like,
do you have night fishing here?
We'll fish at night. Nope. So you can see the harbor is basically blocked by an array of small fishing boats. It's all the Christian samurai.
Mm-hmm.
They're sort of waiting in ambush.
Yep.
Now what they also see is the black ship.
Which I'm going to have to give them props. That ship is huge.
Yep. Yeah, these kind of galleons at the time were massive ships and much bigger than the galley that they're on right now.
Yes.
And so John points out, if they board us, we're toast. They could sink us pretty easily. But they can't sink her.
They can't sink her.
And so Toranaga realizes what must be done, so they pull up alongside and ask for an audience. And basically, in this scene, Toranaga strikes a deal.
Where the captain's going, well. This is the guy who denied me access.
So this is interesting because, in the previous episode, we basically just outlined how the Portugal are not your friends. They are your enemies. They're here to replace you, all this stuff. But Toranaga, he's going to Toranaga. And he realizes that the only way out is to make some kind of a deal with them. So he offers them a couple things. He offers them permission to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Captain's like, thank you for permission I don't need. But, he gives them permission to leave. He gives them some silver to invest in the silk trade. And for the priests,
big thing.
He gives them a church in Edo. In which they're just like, a church.
Which is present-day Tokyo.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a big, big deal.
Yep.
They never thought they would get any path in this area. And you could tell, like, how big it is when the guy translates. He's like, a church in Edo.
So they go along with this. And part of it is because they realize that they can probably hold him to this promise of a church even after he's been impeached and killed later.
Yes.
So they're not really, like, throwing all their eggs in one basket with him. Oh, he also asked in return, he both wants them to escort him out of the harbor, and he wants them to try and turn the other Christian regions to his cause.
Yes.
Which they sort of half-heartedly say, well, we'll put in a good word, maybe.
Maybe, if we feel like it.
And then they have one final condition, which is John Blackthorne must stay behind.
We want that heretic.
Yep.
He's ours.
So he's forced to agree. He stands up for him a bit at first. He's my guest. But he really has no choice. They give him his journals at this point,
Yes,
saying, this guy's not who you think he is. So
these journals make just as much of a journey as John does.
So they give him the journals. They agree to the exchange. So all the lords and ladies go on to the black ship, and John is left behind. They begin to sail away.
I love this scene because, he's on the other little ship. He's watching the black ship go. The theme music starts, and it begins to swell, and he's looking off, and fuck this.
Fuck this.
And
needs to sound the drums.
Yep.
We're going. We're following them.
He knows maybe like 5 words in Japanese, and one is row.
Tries to tell him row fast, and then the captain has to translate. He means faster. And they basically like, okay, well, if they're gonna blow a hole in this blockade, we're just going to stay right up alongside them and ride it with them.
Yes.
So now we start this great chase scene with 2 giant boats. Especially
since the pilot of the black ship is
Rodriguez.
He's back, baby. So while they're alongside each other, they're literally just throwing barbs at each other along the way. A great action scene.
Great rapport.
It's really good.
They blow through the blockade. They didn't stand a chance. The ships just get demolished by the galleon. So it looks like they're out, but it's at this point it's been revealed that the black ship has been slowly going to the left, right, and driving them into some rocks.
Yes.
So John Blackthorne is now about to wreck on these rocks. The captain orders Rodriguez, 5 points more to port to really run them in.
Yeah.
But Rodriguez, he's looking, and he ultimately decides to let him go. So he eases up and lets John Blackthorne pass and gets clear.
And a debt repaid.
Yep, since he saved his life, so now he spares his.
Which I'm glad that kind of had a little bit of like a little closure, because I don't really think we see Rodriguez after this. Yeah. So it's like just a little arc in the beginning of these episodes where it's interesting that these two probably should hate each other's guts. They're frenemies. But because John did the right thing in trying to find him, it now has saved his life. Yep. So they are off out of Osaka, and Toranaga's like, what can I do? He got through. I guess he's coming with us.
So now Toranaga returns to the galley, and they head off to Ajiro.
They're a little ticked. They lost their heretic, but at least they got that church in Edo. Yep. And then we go back to the Regents. I love this scene so much. First, Ishiro is pissed at this Christian lord.
Resting pissed off face all the time. He was watching the ships escape from the harbor, and Josen's like, they'll never make it, and they make it, and he's like, it appears they made it. And just walks off. And so now you got the Regents, they're all facing each other. They mad. Shido's mad that his men were attacked.
Everybody's mad.
The Christian Regent's mad that, the heretic got away, even though it's like, well, I ordered his execution. Yeah, but then Toranaga freed him and it had no consequences. They're all shooting barbs at each other, and they don't like each other.
And the Christian lord's like, oh, what can I do about all these bandits in the woods, And then another one of her fave, Hiramatsu, comes in with probably a highlight of a season for me when he delivers Toranaga's message to the Regents.
Yep. Basically tells them, so due to personal reasons, Toranaga has decided to resign from the council. And she was like, well, doesn't matter. We'll impeach him anyway. It's like, well, actually, Taiko required 5 votes for any votes. And now it appears you're only 4. Just like fucking outplayed again.
Yep. Yeah. Because it's going to take time for them to fill that seat because they never agree on anything. So
right. Yeah, you would think it would be simple, but it ends up not being simple. We'll see that in future episodes.
Especially with now that the divide between the Christian lords and the other two is even deeper because of what happened with the escape from Osaka.
As predicted, the heretic has really driven a wedge. John Blackthorne being around has really helped out, just be a distraction, throw some confusion into the mix.
Yeah, I don't think John realizes how much he's actually helped. We leave the Christian Regents for now. We go back onto the boat.
Yep.
The next day. This is where we get the conversation between Toranaga and his son, Nara. And Nara's ticked because he's like, Dad,
Nagakado.
why didn't you tell me?
Nagakado.
Naga? I thought it was Nara.
Nagakado.
Oh. Naga. So it's N-A-G-A.
Uh-huh.
I'll go with Naga. So he's like, Daddy, why didn't you tell me you were coming along?
And it's also at this point that...
Why don't you trust me?
And that is specifically because Toranaga has told his son now that what he wants him to do is help John Blackthorne train a regiment in foreign tactics with Yabushige.
Mm-hmm.
We just did this whole thing where Yabu, he has not exactly been the most loyal. And so his son does, basically, why am I here babysitting Yabushige? Why are you trusting Yabushige?
Mm-hmm.
An ally who can be bought is no ally at all.
Yeah.
And this is where what Toranaga says is, you are playing a game of friends and enemies.
Yes.
When you only have yourself in this life. Basically, Nagakado has this very simple black and white view of the world where he's both not trusting, but also too trusting. He thinks it is just these pieces on a board. These are my friends. These are my enemies. I can trust my friends. I can't trust my enemies. I can't trust Yabo. Therefore, I can't use him. It's very rigid. And Toranaga's basically like, well, and obviously don't trust Yabu, but that doesn't mean you can't use him. And two, you can't trust anyone.
Yeah. And
Yabu is just as trustworthy as any other ally because they're all in it for themselves. You can only trust yourself.
As we see in the next episode, he can't trust either of those bastards. We leave their conversation to go to John and Mariko. They started a conversation while they were walking in the woods, and this was kind of the second part of that, where they're talking about children, because he was asking about, was that your husband? Was that your son? Mm-hmm. And she goes, do you have kids? And he's like, I have 2. Oh, and she asks, what are they like? And he's like, and we find out that he has not met his youngest kid. He's been gone
his
for a couple years.
Was born after he left.
I don't know, just, you could tell they're connecting as being parents, but also that sadness of like, he doesn't know his child.
Said she'd be 2 years old now.
Ugh.
Then she puts, well, at least you're serving, your lords.
Yes.
And he points out, no, I have no lords. I went out because of the, the call of the sea, the freedom, the horizon, and that's all he's really been doing. So you could tell, he's not someone who has ever been graced with a greater purpose. He's just
my purpose.
He embraces the letter of the law of what Toranaga just says, which is you only have yourself in this life, but misses the rest of it.
It's interesting because, yes, they both ascribe to that, but they use it for different means of you can only trust yourself. You only have yourself in this life. So everybody gets together on the boat. Toranaga shows...
Toranaga.
Oh, I was so close to getting through a whole episode without messing up this man's name. Toranaga shows John the journals that he received from the priest.
Yep. It's like, these prove you are a pirate, allegedly, which is a crime punishable by death.
Mm-hmm.
But they will take some time to translate. So we won't worry about that right now. He's like, okay. Simultaneously, it both simultaneously shows his trust in John Blackthorne while still holding this over his head a little bit. I have this over you.
There's a couple
so
things
he does at the end of line there.
Yeah, there's a couple things he does at the end of this episode. He's showing John who boss.
Mm-hmm.
He announces to everyone that John is now Hatamoto.
Mm-hmm.
You could probably better describe what that means. Basically,
it's like a bannerman. It's a close advisor or protector. It's one of your entourage. So it's a as Marco said, it's a very great honor.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's going to come really into play in the next episode where he sees what being a Hatamoto entails. For now, he's just like, okay.
Sure.
He asks him to train the regiment in foreign tactics. John almost is just like, he almost says, I'm a sea pilot. I don't know anything about tactics. But he realizes he can use this to make another play for getting what he wants, which is his ship and crew returned. So he asks, okay, I will. In exchange, I want my ship and crew back.
Does he agree? Does Toranaga agree to this?
Toranaga explicitly agrees to that. He's just sort of like, that's nice, and goes on. But in Blackthorne's mind, and this is important, in Blackthorne's mind, they have now entered into a mutual relationship of equals.
Exactly.
What he will learn later is they are not equals.
Not equals at all. Does he learn that quickly in the next episode? Oh my goodness. So we only have a couple minutes left in episode 3, but I could talk for 3 hours about the last 5 minutes because Toranaga's like, let's go swimming.
Yeah, I want you to teach me how to dive.
So he takes off his clothes and you look down. He's like, oh, not bad looking guy.
John Blackthorne, yeah.
You go down in that and then you hit that nasty, stanky underwear. And I'm just like, guys, I understand we're here for realism and authenticity. But this might have been a step too far because all I could see are those nasty underwear. And I'm just like, please, God, no. I feel like whatever hotness he had literally just got scrubbed out as soon as you hit those underwear.
It's got to be historically accurate.
No. It's okay if we have a tinge of fantasy in this. They didn't have to be pristine white, but they didn't have to be stained in yellow. Nasty.
I think it was just the fabric was brown.
I don't know. Yeah, probably to match all the nasty stains on there. Oh, so that will haunt me in my nightmares. So he dives. Tarnago is like, and do it again, and again, and again. And so we just get a montage of him diving.
How much longer do I have to do this? And Marco's like, until he is satisfied.
Marco actually tries to stand up for John for a second. Go, well, how about we do swimming tomorrow, or learn something tomorrow. We push it to tomorrow. And this is where we get the episode title. Tomorrow is tomorrow. I want to learn today.
Today I will learn to swim.
Mm-hmm. And because I think...
To dive.
To dive, yes. He knows how to swim. He wants to learn how to dive. I think when you are part of a culture that realizes death is so close, you have just today.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I want to learn today. And so, but he puts John through the ringer. And John's like, and then he does it. He gets down to his own swim trunks and dives. And
he said, he asks, will the engine honor me with a race to the shore?
Mm-hmm.
And Marika says, and don't let him win. He hates it when people do that. It's like, oh, I wouldn't dare.
Yeah. No, thank you.
So yeah, it's a great little scene, a little bit of bonding. It's great because, again, there's so much subtext in everything they do, especially Toranaga. It's a scene of bonding. It's very lighthearted, but he's still very much establishing the power dynamic of who is in charge.
Correct.
Which is great.
Oh, yeah, we know who the boss is.
All right, any final thoughts on this episode?
No, I think we covered pretty much everything. A lot of it was action focused with some gems of themes, things we'll dive into later. I think next episode we really start to get deep into some of these, into some of our characters and how they view their mission, death. This is a lot of setup.
Yep. All right, we have episode 4, The Eightfold Fence. Blackthorne and Mariko test their new alliance as they train Toranaga's gun regiment for war. Yabushige must navigate his past promises to Ishido when an old friend comes to the village. So for some reason I don't have notes on this one, so take the lead.
Oh boy. So we start off this episode with Omi. Is that how it's pronounced? The leader of
Ejiro? This is Yabu's cousin. He's the leader of the...
Nephew.
He's Yabu's nephew and the leader of the village Ejiro that we were introduced with at the beginning.
You see him getting a message from Osaka, pretty much that Toranaga is on his way. So you just see a little montage of them getting the little village ready.
Get ready. Santa Claus is coming to town.
So then we go back to the boat. Fuji and Mariko are talking, and Fuji is pissed. She found out she used to become John's consort.
Which I guess is effectively his legal wife.
I guess apparently. So. There's some things that I'm still a little question mark on. Yeah. Pretty much, and she runs his household. Yeah. It is a place of honor. It's not like she's just a servant.
And this is sort of her purpose that Toranaga's given her, but she wants none of it.
No. She's like, Mariko, did you see that man's underwear? My husband died. My child died. I have their ashes, and now I'm to be this dude's consort? Hell no.
Of course, she has to catch herself because after mentioning that her husband died, she realizes, oh, right, Buntaro just died.
Yeah.
Although I couldn't tell entirely if she was genuinely sorry about it or, I don't know, she delivered it in sort of a way where I feel like you could interpret it as a...
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to.
She's like, I think I have it worse. Then we go to Yabu, who's a little ticked because you just heard about Toranaga's resignation.
You've resigned? Or dead. We're all dead.
We're doomed.
Well, I assume you'll commit seppuku at once. No. It will take the council some time to replace me. So for now, I will keep my head where it is.
Mm-hmm. So they all go to the shore. Ajiro, at first, the, I guess, army.
Yeah, Yabu's army is there.
They're chanting Yabu's name. Yabu, Yabu.
Yaboshiga-sama, ho! Yaboshiga-sama, ho! Although it's a little muted, I say. It's a little more like Yaboshiga-sama, ho! Yaboshiga-sama, ho! Yeah.
Then Toranaga gets up there and he gives like a Braveheart level speech.
Uh-huh.
And it's a really great speech. And all of a sudden they're like,
Toranaga-sama, ho! Toranaga-sama, ho! You can tell it's a little bit louder than Yabu's cheer.
Yabu looks a little miffed.
Looks a little
like,
peeved.
Okay.
So Omi's sort of distracting him. We have everything prepared. Yeah, ignore all this.
And I didn't even notice this. He's so
it's so funny. So the last time you see Toranaga, he has his fan and he's doing the chant. You cut to Yabu and Omi and they're talking. They start walking up the hill and then they turn on like, oh, and then it just cuts to this like he's on a little boat sailing out to sea, but he's still doing his hand thing. It's like,
guys.
At this point, Nagakado, his son, comes up. My father has business elsewhere, so it's just you and me.
Probably one of the best sight gags of the whole season.
Just saying, like literally, you see him on land, and you turn around, and suddenly he's on the boat. Just leaving.
Bye, guys.
Because they obviously thought he was going to stay, and now he's gone, and so they're all like, yeah,
because they prepared the whole village. Yep. One lady's like, "Oh, I shouldn't have brought the expensive sake.
Should have gotten the cheap stuff."
Which doesn't help Yabu being ticked off.
Yep. Is this where we get him talking with his general and Omi?
Almost. First, we have the scene where John tries to get on his ship. He's trying to find out where his crew is.
Yep.
And Marco checks him.
Yep. Finds out they've been taken to Ito for their safety. He's like, well, we had an arrangement. The ship is mine. And Marco's like, you are mistaken. The ship is Toranaga's. And so are you. And you were going to stay here for 6 months to train this regiment. And he's like, 6 months.
Because they show him the house. She tells him about Fuji.
Yeah, he has a whole house. He has a consort. He has a staff.
Yeah. And he's like, this is just another prison. It's just it's a nicer look.
Quarters.
Yeah. Just a nicer prison.
Which is true in a sense.
In a sense, I think it's more just who John is. He is on the open seas. He is the master of himself.
Yeah.
So even if it is just 6 months, he needs to be here and do this just to get where he needs to get. I could see how it's just like, it does feel like a prison to him.
You can tell he still has not let go of the man he was before. Despite all the progress he's made, the inroads he's made, he's still ultimately what he wants is to leave.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to get out. He wants his ship. He wants to get back to his life.
Yep. So in that way, I can see how 6 months would probably seem like forever. So after he makes a stink, Fuji's just standing there going, oh, great. This is what I'm going to have to live with. We now go over to Yabu, who is pissed off and moaning and groaning and bitching to everybody.
Toranaga insulted me, blah, blah, blah. And Omi brings up, okay, well, this can still work to our advantage because, for now anyway, until Toranaga comes back to claim it, this new regiment is yours. And therefore, whoever controls this regiment has, some degree of power and is valuable to their allies because Yabu realizes that Shido, at this point, thinks he betrayed him.
Yep.
Because he didn't realize that Toranaga was there, but from Ishida's perspective, it sure looks like he did, which was so calculated on Toranaga's part. And this just goes to show why Nagakado's view of friends and enemies that's not going to get you anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
He played Yabu like a fiddle. and basically...
He put him in a position where he has to be on his side in a way,
Yeah, he basically has no other option now. He trusted him exactly as much as he needed to, give him the exact amount of information he needed to, and now he's stuck. He basically burned his whole bridge with the Shido. He burned it.
I think he didn't realize, though, that Yabu's nephew, though, is a bit smarter than Yabu. And
He
it's
is.
like, hey, you can gift these to
And we'll talk about this later
Shido.
too. But what I'm looking at in this watch through now is I'm looking at Omi closely, and I'm not 100% sure where Omi's loyalties actually lie, and if he's being 100% honest with his uncle about all this.
Oh, no, I think Omi's also out for himself.
Now, see, I am not 100%. I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
But I think Omi might actually be a lot more loyal to and in the council of Toranaga than we think.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
He's obviously a lot smarter than his uncle.
Yeah.
That much is clear. All right. So we get that little scene, and then...
Oh, this is where Mariko goes to John, and he's sulking in the rain on their little, like, porch step. Well, I guess I have to be here. Blah, blah, blah. I don't know. He's just being a baby. And and this is where Mariko says to him, like, we grieve those we lost by continuing their fight.
Yeah, because she asked, like, Fuji deserves better than how you're treating her. She's...
Oh, yeah.
Completely. A woman of high standing. Her husband and son were recently put to death. So she explains that situation. He makes the comment as she doesn't seem like a one in mourning. And that's where we get the episode title, The Eightfold Fence, which has deep roots in Japanese culture and mythology, and basically talks about how she basically explains it as like, you can't be fooled by what we present on the outside.
Do not be fooled by our politeness.
Yep.
He's like, from a young age, they are taught to like build almost like a wall around themselves. And so it's almost like pretty much they're taught to disassociate.
Yeah.
And so if stuff is going on, like they're being insulted, whatever, they are far away.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, that doesn't mean I'm here. I could be in my island on the sea
Yep.
at peace, far away from here. We could be miles away alone.
Yeah. Very powerful scene. And really, yeah, that starts to give him some more insight into how everyone's acting and why it can confuse him sometimes.
And this is also where Mariko gives John his guns,
Yep.
which I think is...
Which he had asked for previously, and it's like, we'll get them to you maybe.
It's a nice gesture, because I think she does understand his frustrations.
Yeah.
Because he's not used to playing these type of games.
Yep.
And they've been doing it all their lives. And she's trying to, like, just be patient.
Yep.
Be patient. See how things come together. And then the next morning, it is Omni versus John. Guns.
Yeah, so we get so obviously they don't have a good relationship since when they first met each other, he peed on his head.
Yeah, Omni was really...
Omi.
Oh, sorry. Omi was really...
Omni-Man is from Invincible.
He was pretty awful to John. Yeah, the whole peeing on the head. I'm like, yeah, I don't think I would soon forget that one. They're like, you need to turn over your weapons because they're going to all
they're
get together
go
for a council.
For the training, for the regiment.
He's like, bitch, I ain't giving you my guns.
So there's a bit of a cultural misunderstanding here because he's like, well, you all will carry swords, but to them, swords are very ceremonial and have a meaning. Guns are strictly a tool, so they don't carry guns.
Yes.
They're not allowed to carry guns everywhere.
And this is where Fuji comes in and she shows her importance.
Yep.
Because like I said, do not underestimate these ladies.
Yeah. So she basically gives them to me, and Marco says, yeah, Fuji will protect them with her life.
Yes.
So he reluctantly gives up his guns to Fuji. Omi then demands that Fuji give him the guns. And Fuji, because she watches how Blackthorn handles them and Coxabag, how they work. And she does this cool little thing where, because they can't, I'm assuming it's some sort of, it's a cultural thing. They can't touch them with their bare hands. So she, wraps up her sleeves to hold them. So it has a cute little thing. Anyway, so when Omi asks them, she cocks it and points it right at him. And it's like, nope.
She somehow looks adorable and badass at the same time. And I'm just like, yes, Fuji's not to be fucked with. And John, I think this is where John started getting on board with Fuji.
John realizes at this point.
He's like, he looks at her like, heck yeah.
Well done. That chick's badass. And then Omi backs down and they go on their way.
Mm-hmm. And then we get to the training session, which doesn't go well for John at first.
And I knew about this before I listened to the behind the scenes podcast, but this was a pretty big change from the original story, because in the original book, they train the Japanese in, musketry and musket warfare. Okay. Which was misinformed on Clavel's part. The Japanese already had muskets for decades at this point, because the Portuguese brought them. So they have tons of guns. They use them everywhere.
Oh, and he even mentions that in the episode, like, we know how to use guns.
We already know how to use it, Well, we're interested in specific tactics that our enemies might not know, because they recognize that, these aren't the Portuguese, maybe the English have something different up their sleeve. And so I thought they handled this really smartly in terms of, okay, well, if they can't teach him guns, you still need him to be valued with something. Yes. Well, he's a sailor. What he knows is naval warfare, and the big thing in naval warfare is, of course, cannons. And this apparently was an historically accurate thing. The Portuguese cannons that they gave them were pretty small and ineffective. The English and Dutch gave the Japanese much bigger and better cannons. Okay. So they sort of incorporate that in here, where he brings out the cannons from his ship.
It makes sense.
Yep. Yeah. And I believe in naval terminology, these probably would have been the chaser guns, which are, so a big ship has all the guns on the side, used for broadsides, right? But they also have two big chaser guns on the front, and I think maybe the back too. Okay. But these are really long range, designed to be really accurate, because you can't if you are chasing an enemy ship, you're not going to be alongside where you can shoot with all the side guns. You have to have guns that you can shoot forward. Okay. Oh, and that explains why they are. So I was surprised how accurate they were. I'm like, so the Japanese see is like, okay, we've seen cannons before, but they're not that effective. But these guns are. And he shows them basically how effective they are. They're really accurate. They're very powerful. And so that becomes his contribution. They are now going to train this regiment as a cannon regiment using the guns from his ship. Mm-hmm. Perfect. Yes, because when he first tries to teach him about gun tactics or whatever, both Yabu and Mariko give him shit for it. Yeah, because he basically starts with like some old story about the siege of Constantinople or something. And they're like, well, how about something you did? It's like, well, I'm a sailor. I didn't do anything. So then after this, we get a little montage of him training the regiment, and also Mariko giving him eyes, giving him little eyes, looking at the journals. Yep. Yes. Seeing the big gun. And so I mean, he's a sailor. He probably knows his way around a cannon. Just saying. That's what she was really hoping to get out of those journals. So, Mariko and John sitting on a cliffside looking out, beautiful day. And this is kind of where Mariko really starts challenging him on kind of dropping his own agenda and getting on board to serving Toranaga, because what he's doing is not going to end well. Like, and then the earthquake happens. Yeah, so we get his first introduction to earthquakes. Just a baby one, as she said. He's like, a baby one? The whole ground just shook. What are you talking about? She goes, that's why our houses are designed the way they are, to rebuild very quickly. To go up as fast as they come down. Mm-hmm. Oh, this is also where we get her talking about how before you get into our politics, you got to know that death is in our air, our sea, our land. Yeah, because she mentions tsunamis. She said sometimes the sea will rise up. Yeah, so it's like literally from every angle, feels like something is trying to kill them. We live and we die. We control nothing more. And I feel like that line really kind of encompasses like the Japanese viewpoint, at least in the show, of like how they view life and death and the troubles that John is having, and why he's probably having a hard time like getting on board with Toranaga. Yep. Is this clash. So we leave that and we go to a sexy scene with Kiku and Omi. Omi, yep. Oh, I got it.
where it's interesting. We've seen her in a couple scenes in this episode. She's just kind of in the background, like strumming a guitar, kind of hanging out. And here, after they have sex, you know, I guess he's just, I can't remember exactly what happened. He's just kind of like telling her like what's going on. And she's like, oh, if only you are our Lord.
Yeah. Gets him thinking.
And I think really that line, it's so simple the way she does it, but what she tells him, this puts that little seed in his head, and I think it really kicks him over to his conversation to Tornaga's son. Like, it's interesting the domino effects you start seeing.
Yeah. I think you can tell that they don't really like Yabu that much.
Then we go over to training, and this is when Yoshido's men are on their way.
Yeah, so they find out that, so Jozen shows up, Yoshido's right-hand man, his general. He comes here and he basically says, Yabu, you've been summoned to pledge your allegiance to the council. And if you don't, you'll be declared a fugitive. But if he goes, he'll probably be killed anyway.
Yeah, yep. They're like, to stand your punishment pretty much. And he's like, oh, so that's nice. I'm fucked either way.
Yeah, so he's trying to explain to him, look, I don't know about Tornaga, but Jozen's not having it. So does that mean you're denying the request? You know, he's very much over his bullshit. Even though he's being completely honest, I didn't know.
I think that is the fun irony of this, is that for the most part, there are times when Yabu is being fully honest, but because of who he is, nobody believes
him, which Tornaga knew. Really? You didn't know that Tornaga was there? Because no one else would have done that, but Tornaga would.
And then he's like, look at the stuff we have, these cannons. Wouldn't Yoshido like these? Maybe you should stay and watch them in action. And then the reason he gives to everybody else of why they're staying is like, we're going to show them a demonstration of our power.
Yeah. But really, he's just trying to impress Jozen enough that I'll go back and petition for Yabu's head to be kept intact. So he's just looking out for himself.
Yeah. Whatever will get him through the day with his head on his shoulders.
Nagakado does not like this idea at all. He doesn't like the fact that they're going to show their enemy what their capabilities are. He just wants Yabu to just refuse the offer and be done with it and become a fugitive, because that would secure his loyalty to Tornaga, because he has no other choice at that point. But nope. So he's unhappy about this at all.
Before we go in this conversation we go to John's house. He's having a meal with Mariko and Fuji. And I just thought this was a nice scene where Mariko's first is explaining to John, like, what Yabu's position, because I bet John's like, what was that today? What is happening? He tries a dish, it's
natto.
cute. And then he also apologizes to Fuji, and he gives her his guns.
Yeah.
And he's just like, what am I going to do with these? And Marco's like, he's trying to be nice. He's trying to be kind. And then Fuji gives John her father's swords, which I'm like, man, I think John grasps like how meaningful this is. Because he's like, no, I can't take these. And Marco's like, well, she can't serve a lord that doesn't have swords. So it's probably good that you take them. But yeah, giving him her dad's swords, I'm like, that's a pretty meaningful gesture.
Some great bonding moments all around between the three of them.
Now we go to the conversation with Umi and
Nagakado, yep.
Where Omni's like, oh, that's not to start a war without Daddy's permission.
Yeah, but he's playing both sides, because he's all like, it's too bad we got to show Jozen all our cannons tomorrow. That would suck. But we can't, because can't do anything about it because your father wouldn't approve, and that really gets Nagakado.
I am not the soft-headed, spoiled brat everybody thinks I am. Take charge, baby.
So basically, Omi just masterclass completely baits him into his next course of action.
Omni's like, yeah, because it'd be bad if they know about our plans.
Yep. Reverse psychologies him into doing something about it. Is this where we then get the scene with blindfold in the pool.
The hot springs.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Lecter takes a walk to the hot springs at night, takes off his clothes, and when you know it, Marco comes around the corner right at that moment.
Didn't see that.
Thankfully, this time without the dirty underwear, so it's much better.
Costuming department, thank you. That would have diminished all sexiness of the scene if they were there.
Yeah, so he sort of dips in the pool real quick.
She's like, oh, thank God you're taking a bath. I wonder if that was really what was keeping her apart. This lack of bath.
God, I can actually stand to be around you now.
So they're making eyes. Well, they're just chatting.
Yeah.
You know? Oh, I think what's important here is that Mariko mentions to John, like, I'm not doing all this because of my religion, because of my loyalty to the church. I'm doing this for Tornaga because a great injustice was done to me and I couldn't find resolution. And my Lord is now giving me that option or like a path to that.
Yeah, we start getting some hints into her backstory.
Yeah, because
so
they give a
really
little flashes of
flashbacks.
Yeah, like her in the snow and the priest being there. So it looks like it was about from 14 years ago when she became a Catholic. So yeah, you're definitely getting that something really awful happened to her. And that has been her driving force to really stay alive because there's a reason why she has heard the sweet call of death earlier on in her life. So they start talking about London because she's like, oh, our
Tell me
lady.
about your home, yeah.
And are ladies really that virtuous? He's like, nah. No. And, nothing really special. He just say like, what if you came to London, what would we do?
Yeah, what would you do if we were there together?
Mm-hmm. It's just a sweet scene.
Mm-hmm.
The lining gets a little fuzzy, a little dreamy. I liked it. It's just a lot of these moments between them in the past couple episodes are them trying to understand each other and get to know each other.
Oh, real quick. I think the other important thing that connects them when they talk about the Thames, the river, and John talks about how he views the Thames, how it makes you forget your troubles.
Yeah.
Looking at the river and it really connects with the discussion about the eightfold fence that they have earlier, that no matter what's happening in your life at that moment, when you're there looking at the Thames, you can be very far away.
Yes. And it is a nice moment because while they're talking, they're back to back since he's naked. And he's, looking in the hot spring and she's looking out to the sea. So even while he's talking about that, the way she's looking out to the sea kind of does bring back that, like, this is where I am in my deepest of hearts.
And he had also previously talked about the sea and how it was open. There was nothing there. So I think you're really, both of their perspectives are now connecting with each other. His view about the sea and the ocean and the freedom it provides is connecting with her within her eightfold fence concept, where the sea is where you are free. And meanwhile, what she had talked about with the eightfold fence is now connecting with him, where, that's what the Thames was for me, that same experience.
Yep, they're definitely connecting. Now,
and then
we get to John's house. Fuji's made us a little bed. He slides in, what we got here? The door opens. Mariko comes in.
Yep.
Bon chicka mama time, baby. Mariko takes off her outfit, gets in bed with John. Tastefully, we see nothing but the shadows. They are making out as we piece on out of the scene. I'm like, oh yeah. I was expecting this to happen, but I was actually surprised how quickly they got together.
Yeah, and I also appreciated that. I mean, they've done some serious, emotional bonding by this point.
Yes.
It wasn't just show up, look hot, get laid. You know what I mean?
Because he had those underwear, so she really had to get to know him.
There was actual chemistry there.
Yes.
In their conversation, so it it was not what I expected. With like,
And
so I
then-
appreciate that.
Yes. And then the next morning, John has no chill, where Marco's like, oh, really? You had a nice night?
Yeah, we Fuji and I thought that we needed a courtesan, so I'm glad the courtesan was acceptable. So there's no acknowledgement except for maybe a little bit of a glance and a smirk.
I don't know what's going on, but off to the side, Fuji's also there eating. She just like I don't know. The question mark.
Yeah, was she in on it? Did she know or
No,
not?
there was like a little bit of a
Can't
question
tell
mark.
because they're deep inside their fence.
Exactly.
They're not telling you nothing.
And if she does know, she's keeping it to herself. Yeah.
Oh.
She's like, okay, you do you, girl. Good. I don't have to do it. Fine. So, no, we're feeling positive right now.
Things are
Everything's
looking good.
Looking good. And then we go to the demonstration.
Josen's there with his men, all very conveniently off to one side, together, away from everybody.
How does this happen? Is it Naga goes up and starts talking shit, and then they all are moving around, and John is like, wait, what? Like, they know something is up.
Yeah, so they're set up as if they're about to shoot the cannons from where they are out to some targets in the field.
Yes.
John has showed up. He has his swords. Yabu comments, oh, now he's wearing swords. That's a bad omen. Yep. And
For Yabu, yes.
yeah, Josen starts running his mouth a little bit, and then you can tell Nagato he's like,
I had it.
he's nervous and he's getting ready and he's trying to like
Yep.
psych himself up. And then he runs out. He starts telling all the cannon operators who are sort of in the way, move out, move out, move out. Everybody clear out. Josen and his men perk up at this, they're getting ready. They're expecting at most they're expecting maybe some hand-to-hand action here.
Mm-hmm.
Nagato makes a big speech about how he has insulted his lord, he's the enemy, blah, blah, blah. And sword goes up as a signal, comes down, and cannon fire erupts from the far tree line, aimed back at them. And there's a
Brutal.
there's some Chekhov's chain shot from earlier. Because before then, when Josen's men show up, they're talking about they fired some regular cannonballs and now they're going to demonstrate some chain shot. But they never actually do it. Now, one thing I think the show failed at is they should have shown the chain shot. Because I know what chain shot is, and I heard them mention chain shot.
I don't know anything about
But for some reason, they never showed it. They have the cannon blocking the view when he's loading it up. A chain shot is 2 cannonballs.
Is that what happens?
Connected by a chain.
I didn't get that.
Yeah. See, this is the one thing. The one thing that I think they really failed at.
I just thought they got blasted by cannons.
No, yeah. Because a regular cannonball is not always that great at taking out a person. You need something else, maybe like a grape shot, or something else that'll actually, because it's, a single ball going that fast.
That's what I thought. Okay, I was a little confused. I'm like,
yeah,
oh,
this is the one
man.
thing where they did not do a great job. A chain shot is 2 cannonballs
that makes
connected
so
by a long
much more
chain.
sense.
They load
Okay.
up together, they fire, and when they do that, they spin around and cover a big, wide arc.
Okay, that is why some of them get like hacked.
Yeah, so basically it's like a razor wire
Yeah.
traveling through the air,
Oh.
and it shreds them to
Forewarning.
pieces. This is one of the...
Horses
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah, there's some
It's
big
rough.
graphic blood here.
So if you don't like animal cruelty,
I don't know if typically they would use chain shot against people. The way I understood chain shot was typically used in ship-to-ship combat against, it would be to take out the rigging, because it would do a big wide thing, it would wrap around the mast and stuff, and it would take them out. But still pretty effective against flesh and blood, passes right through, and just, it wipes out all of Ishido's men.
And Josen has like his legs and one of his arms are off.
Arms
and he's
taken
on
off,
the ground. He's still talking shit.
Yep. Like, this is not a samurai fight. You all pay for this. And Nagato comes up and kills him as his men mop up the rest of them.
And the shock on all their faces.
Poor Yabu's just like, what the fuck is going on? What have you done?
Well, dang it. John and Marika, their faces, because in the last line of the episode she says, "It is war."
Yep, this is the point of no return here.
Because it's a lot of dancing. Because I think everybody's getting ready. Like
They're waiting for
Naga's
someone
getting
else
ready.
to make a
Yes.
move.
And while that's happening, they are building up
Mm-hmm.
his regiment. That's why John's there. And so his sons just come in and start war where they might not even be ready to battle. I don't, just, again, there's a reason why I'm like, Daddy love me. I'm my own man. My daddy can't tell me when to do. That's all I hear from this kid because of the choices he makes. His one Tornaga come and go smack him upside the head like, you idiot.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be a running theme with Nagakado.
Yeah.
This season.
He is trying so hard. And by doing that, he's trying too much. Whereas Dad's like, do less. Do less, please. Because now he has to clean up his mess. And he's going to war because of his dumbass son.
Yeah. Part of me wonders, though, how much Toranaga keeps him at arm's length. And that frustrates him.
Mm-hmm.
And part of me wonders how much of that can be put on Toranaga's shoulders and how he treats his son and drove him to this point. And also, I think it's probably worth investigating how much Toranaga does this intentionally to get these kind of reactions out of him, and how much his son is. And it goes back to his perspective on friends and enemies.
Mm-hmm.
He also is looking at this as father and son, but I don't know if Toranaga completely looks at it as father and son, and if Nagakado would realize that and play his own game, probably the better off he'd be. But this is who he is, and therefore this is what he does.
Yes, because when you play these games, these are the casualties you have. It damages the relationship he has with his son.
Yep.
Because he can't trust him. His son feels that.
Yeah, it's a vicious cycle. He can't trust him, so he can't bring him in, which makes Nakano increasingly more frustrated, which makes him act rashly, which makes Toranaga not be able to trust him, and then they're stuck in this loop.
They are stuck in this cycle, where they are both, in essence, to blame.
Yep.
All right, anything else we want to mention before we wrap up?
Just one quote that I wanted to leave us with, and I think this was Mariko talking about Fuji and the loss of her family.
Yes.
Says, we grieve those we lost by continuing their fight, which is another big theme in the show and will come into play significantly later. So I want to put a little pin in that, have just that ruminating.
There's a reason why it's brought up a couple of times these past episodes. Very important. All right, so we will see you next Wednesday for episode 5 and 6.
Yes. Getting close to the end here. This next episode.
I mean, there's only 10 episodes.
5 and 6. That's your probably last chance to, if you are still on the fence about watching the show and don't want to go in with the big spoilers.
Yeah, I would say probably next week. Yeah,
next week would be your last chance, because after that, shit goes down. And,
yeah, shit does go down.
and there'll be big spoilers during 8 and 10. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about devoting some time to check the show out if you haven't already.
All right. Well,
all right.
We'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.